welcome to you all. Matthew said I'm one of the lead advisors with Shelda Dubowski from Australia. And this course will be all about research leadership. My current role, I'm, as I said, Pro-Vice Provost of the Doctoral School at University College London. I'm also a Professor of Chemical Engineering. It's a little bit of research and teaching. What is this Pro-Vice Provost of the Doctoral School role? Well, I oversee all of the early career researchers at UCL. We have about 7,000 research students and about 3,500 postdoctoral researchers. So trying to work with the Vice Provost, most places might call it a Pro-Vice Chancellor research, and I'm the sort of more the people side and the early career stage side of the research portfolio at UCL. So let me move on to the next slide. Tell you, I was reflecting on what might be most useful to you in thinking about how we're going about this course and developing the ideas around this course. So I thought what might be useful is first to talk about my leadership journey and how I got to where I am, because I thought that might inform the way we're thinking a little bit. And I'll have a few reflections on that, because it reflects on how one builds a the research leadership and maintains one professionalism within a research career. Then some specific research reflections on research leadership. And then I thought it might be useful just a few perceptions on how I see the academy is changing. I'm involved in a lot of roles, a lot of activities globally. So this is not by no means, I know most people on the call are UK or Ireland based, but not only. But anyway, so let's move on to the next slide. I'll do this fairly quickly. I'm not really going to give you a lot of detail. I just picked out a few little highlights. But I was an engineering student in the usual way. I did a PhD at Imperial College. Then I spent 3 years in industry at the British Gas Corporation, and then thinking about, did I want to have an academic career or not? I had no idea at that stage. So I was really keeping my options open, and it took this industrial position. And then I never did a postdoc. That was the most you could consider. Then I spent 4 years at the University of Adelaide, my first academic position. Actually, I was born and brought up in Australia, not Adelaide as it happens, but I thought I'd go back and see it. And in 1990, I joined UCL as a lecturer, became a full professor in 2000. And in 2005, I took this role, Pro-Vice Provost. It was called something different at the time, but overseeing the early career researchers. And I was FREng, that's the National Academy of Engineering, the Royal Academy of Engineering, made a fellow in 2005. So that's just quickly. While I was in Australia, not very early on in my career, a couple of industry grants. I was very involved in the national professional body, and then trying to raise visibility of my research. I was involved through the usual routes, the conference route and the university seminars. And from Australia, I'll tell you that was quite difficult, but I managed to get to the USA once and going a little bit around the world. So starting to build profile, come back to that point in a minute. Then at UCL, I got a few small grants, but the first sizable research grant did take a few years, 94. And in 1996, I successfully won an EU grant as coordinator. And then in 2000, I was coordinator of a thematic network for the European Commission programs. And there were a number of grants around at that point. So gradually building from a smaller stage, building the profile rather than trying to go for broke too early, but getting the international perspective there. The fourth bullet point is about how I was trying to grow my footprint, let's call it, through workshop organizers, again, the National Specialist Committee, and then chair of it in 95, a European Specialist Committee. I was involved in lots of research council review panels, of course, and latterly strategy panels. 2005, I was chair of a World Congress of Chemical Engineering, and in 2013, I was on the UK REF panel, or it was called the Research Assessment Exercise then, for chemical engineering. That's, for those of you who don't know, you know, it's going on at the moment, the major research assessment of research in the UK. And then this last point is, I took quite a major shift in 2005 to a more broader university role. And it was something that really interested me and always interested me, this training researchers. So I became this pro-vice provost in 2005. I was chair of a League of European Research Universities doctoral studies chair. So that's 23 research intensive universities, probably. There's sort of most of the really big ones in mostly Northwestern Europe. European Research Area panel member, advisory peer review boards in the UK and Switzerland, Germany, France. And in 2018, I chaired the review of the Concord Act for the career development of research staff. And there's a new Concord Act that came out as a result of the recommendations from my review. So I wanted to just show you, took some risks early on, wasn't quite sure where I was going, then started to grow the research thing. But right from the beginning, I was trying to grow awareness of the activities that I was doing, in not just research-wise, but professionally and educationally as well. And then this broader research training, doctoral, early career researcher role as well. So the next slide. So just a few reflections on that. And this is reflecting on how we're trying to tune or to make the course attuned to people's concerns. Right at the beginning, lots of concerns about what should I do, where should I go, and all the rest of it. And I certainly chose my research directions to what really inspired me, and what, not just what inspired me, what I really want to do, but what I thought was really going to make a difference, not just what I felt inclined. Obviously, there's a balance between those two, between maintaining your motivation to really do what your nose tells you, but also thinking all the time about, is this really going to make a difference? And one thing that I'm always telling lots of colleagues, just be strategic in the research that you go for and the research that you apply for. It's very easy, there's certainly in the UK lots of opportunities to apply, and it's a mistake to try and spray applications around everywhere. It's better to spend time on the ones that you really want to get funded. And if you're not successful the first time, try in different ways. Second bullet point then was, I chose to develop an international profile first. Publications, seminars, conferences, you might have seen that, because I think that's how to really, research is really an international business, especially in the sciences, but also in the social sciences and the humanities. My current role, I involve with researchers across all disciplines. And then that then leads naturally to a higher profile national role. And I would encourage the people who are taking this, we want to build it around mentoring the researchers that we take on to take on such roles, these committees, these panels reviewing early, and helping them to do that. It's not just enough to be telling them how to do their research, it's about telling them how to build their career and how to build a profile in a balanced way. Second, the third bullet point was just to be saying, don't just have your nose right outside in the international world. Remember your home department responsibilities and keeping your colleagues on side. You also see this sometimes where people just building this great career, but then they forget that actually they're part of a home department, which is really a home faculty, school, whatever it might be. I always encourage people to really take up and seek opportunities. The opportunities that have come my way have come mostly from unexpected sources. Obviously you can't do everything, but I think it's important to not be too constrained. Take the risks about the opportunities. Don't just think, oh well, I'm not sure that that's going to help me in the short term, because you just know never whether they're going to lead. Of course, there's a balance to be struck, and that the fifth point, then try and strike a decent work-life balance. We're going to try and build this into the program. That's a real problem in academia at the moment, as I'm sure everybody knows. And give yourself space, and that then you're acting as a role model to the researchers who are working with you, and building them to show that they don't have to absolutely crucify their entire life, because research goes up and down. You really need that wider community of friends and hobbies and activities and families and stuff like that outside. I see people really burn out and too early sometimes. And my last point was really, I've always had a sort of 5-year planning horizon myself. I don't believe you can really see beyond that. You can sort of try, but I try to think where I'm going in 5 years and try and build a strategy to achieve that. And that was one of the things we were talking about earlier this morning, that it's important. We will be trying to get across the idea that it's important to have a strategy. It needs to be flexible, just as research. There's a lot of uncertainties in research. Likewise, there's a lot of uncertainties in career planning, but it's still important to have a plan and to be flexible with that plan. So let me move on now to, just before the next slide. Before I talk about research leadership, I want to tell you about a particular individual, so we can go on to the next slide, who's been, I found, very inspirational. Marty Ahtisaari, the man speaking on the upper slide. Marty was the president of Finland, and he, after doing that, he became a sort of bit of a roving ambassador, and he was asked. Basically, in the end, he got the Nobel Peace Prize for sorting out Bosnia and Kosovo. So a hugely distinguished man, but his vision of leadership was very much an inclusive vision and bringing people around you onwards. It was not in any sense focused on him and his careers. You need to think about it, I suppose, but it was really trying to grow everybody around him effectively so that he could leave a legacy. The legacy behind him was the people he'd grown and developed and the way he'd developed them. And in this case, he got involved with us in raising money for scholarships in London and Paris. And here he is working with a group of research students at UCL from the North Africa, from Egypt to Tunisia and Libya. And it was actually as a result of the so-called Arab Spring at the time that we put together an initiative which he was leading on between us in London and in Paris. And that's how I got to work quite closely with him. So let me move on to the next slide, because this really influences, because I believe that's a model that absolutely works in research careers as well. Research leadership, to me, is about not just growing yourself, it's about being inclusive, bringing people into your research team, your department, research group, whatever the structure, and as you move up the organization. And this works actually outside of academia just as much as it does within academia, but really being inclusive of ideas from everybody and trying to support them, really growing and supporting others around you. People are a key research output. We tend to focus on papers, patents, and data, but actually a lot of those papers, not really necessary. They're useful, but they're not necessarily going to make a big difference. Every single one of those people that we grow and develop are a key. They will make a difference on the world. So it's important that you grow and develop and grow these attitudes, and they are some of the people that we hope will be taking on this this course. There are, of course, many leadership styles, and if you've been on any leadership courses, they will tell you all about different ways of doing things. So I'm not really going to get, but one has to be reflective of the style that we operate and that we are personally comfortable with. But even within all those leadership styles, it's possible to be inclusive and to always be thinking and growing others around you. That leads on to the next one, that it's really important to think about the personal development. That was your personal development, so that we keep our skills and we keep developing and thinking about the way that we do, reflect on the way that we operate, but those others around you. So making sure that they have opportunities to go on the right sort of courses, to be presenting at the right conferences, to be making the right internships, to really thinking about where they want to be. It may be staying in academia, it may be to finding careers beyond academia, whatever. We really need to, but I don't actually believe the skills that are needed beyond academia are very different from the skills that we need within academia these days. This idea of leadership and communication and engagement with society, everybody really needs to do that. And remember and think about, they will need to be thinking about the values that they have. And it's worth trying to reflect. A lot of statements on values everywhere, but it's quite good to be clear about your values, not necessarily pushing them down people's throats, as it were, or even having mission statements and all that sort of stuff, which the institutions have. But we need to be clear about what our values are in terms of integrity and inclusivity and so on, because your team and others will judge you, which judge the research leaders on how they convey those values. And again, these are the sorts of things we're going to try and be instilling in the course. So let me just, my final slide then is one about how the academy is changing. And this, as I say, comes reflected from me sitting on many European panels over the last decade or so, some in the US, some in Latin America. I have a visiting position in China as well. Certainly, growth will still be there. There's some concern that maybe the pandemic is going to constrain the growth but I don't believe so. I think student demand is strong everywhere, and all the countries that I see in around the world, and I even shared something for the Royal Academy of Engineering about Sub-Saharan Africa, everybody is seeing research and innovation as a driver of prosperity. So I see student demand growing and research and innovation funding growing as well. I believe it will still be very globalized as it is now. Again, some concerns, will the pandemic constrain this? I don't believe so. We see very strong demand, but fortunately from all around the world and for collaboration across the world, but growing strength in the developing world so that there will be less maybe sending students around for extended periods, but I still think there'll be a lot of interchange. Impact and value will become more important. This point I made right at the beginning. Yes, we need to be doing the research that we think is that we want to do, but we want to be thinking about the impact and value that it has, and the need for these demonstrating stronger links to society to show value. As the amount of money grows, whether it be through student fees or greater government investment in research and innovation, they will wanting to be seeing that we are producing value, which we certainly do. I see changes in the culture. This is a little bit slower, this one. It's a very competitive environment, but I'm glad to see I see some movement in trying to make it a bit more collaborative and less competitive. More transparency on the things that we do. Open science, you may be aware of the idea, particularly transparency of outputs. And more respect. I think the university, the academic sector has not got a very good track record in people respecting each other between academics and professional services and so on. And we want to, I think I see some desire for that to change. I think we will be judged on a broader impact within academia, not just on the very narrow research metrics, papers, patents, and data. And I think people are, as I say, a very key output. So what happens to them, what they do, what difference they make on the world, I believe we'll be judging on those. A couple of questions at the end that I'm not so sure about. The precarity of early career researchers. There's a lot of talk about this at the moment and how that might change, but that's a difficult problem. The work-life balance is still problematic. So are our expectations too high? Well, that's part of the culture discussion, and it's too early to tell whether that's going to change. But then remember the values that we have. That's what we're going to try and instill in this course, to think about the values. Why did we come into all this research thing? It's about making a better future. And so we want to ensure that they maintain that commitment to a better future, and that means a better future for not just society in general, but the researchers whom they grow and we grow and develop as well. So with that, I will finish and pass on to Emma or Matthew or whoever.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Bogle, for your fascinating insights and reflections. That was most enjoyable and interesting. So if I can just pass you on now to Emma Gallen.
Thank you very much, Matthew, and good morning, everybody. So if we can jump straight to the next slide, please. I'm really pleased to introduce to you today our brand new project and collaboration opportunity, Advancing Your Research Career Strategies for Research Leadership. And this will be an interactive online program that will support early to mid-career researchers in taking a strategic and reflective approach to managing their research career. And David has spoken about that strategy building aspect with great insight to us this morning. The program will provide flexible and engaging training, allowing researchers to build an understanding of the key capabilities that underpin successful research leadership, whatever that looks like in their own field, discipline, or context. And it will support researchers to take ownership of their career development strategy and identify the skills, tools, opportunities, and people to help them establish themselves as research leaders. So if we can look at the next slide, please. The program is a second edition of a course that we published in 2014 under the name of Professional Skills for Research Leaders. And this course is still well used, well liked by the institutions that have it, but of course so much has changed in the research landscape since 2014. And career pathways in research are perhaps even less straightforward these days. So now really is the right time for a new edition to ensure that we're effectively supporting researchers with their current needs and emerging challenges. So we sought plenty of feedback from a number of institutions on the first edition and on what they would like to see in the second edition. And you can see on screen now the summary given in the table. So we're really refining the aims and the scope of the second edition, and we'll be targeting the content more specifically to that early to mid-career researcher group, both encompassing independent academic researchers and also research staff, postdoctoral researchers, that group too. In terms of topics, all of the content is going to be revisited and revised to ensure that it's completely up to date and relevant. And in particular, the feedback we received showed a need for some new and expanded content on topics of current priority. So for example, that includes research impact and engagement, knowledge exchange, research cultures, very important, researchers' mental health and well-being, social media, and some more management-related topics such as negotiation, feedback and appraisal, and managing difficult conversations. In terms of structure, so while the comprehensive content coverage of the first edition was praised and is something we're looking to retain in the new programme, the feedback suggested that a more modular, streamlined approach to the programme structure would be preferable to ensure that it's more manageable and accessible. So we're therefore proposing a programme of 10 concise modules that will each take around 30 minutes to complete. There'll be clear subdivisions in the course through this modular approach for easy navigation, and it will be possible for researchers either to take all of the modules in order if they wish, or alternatively they can dip in and dip out and access the relevant modules at point of need, which I think is going to be really important to fit around researchers' very busy schedules. And finally here, we're going to be working to tailor the learning design for the programme to ensure that it's most effective for this audience and supports knowledge acquisition. So making sure that there's opportunities to apply that knowledge and allow the researcher to really reflect on their own personal situation and their individual career pathway, and a bit more on that in a moment. So the next slide shows the proposed programme outline, which has been through an initial round of reviews with the universities, and it was quite well received. So as I mentioned, each of these modules will take around 30 minutes to complete. And we've aimed for quite a comprehensive coverage across broader career development topics, leadership and management topics, and also those key professional areas that researchers are largely required to develop during their career these days, such as research impact, funding, dissemination, etc. So just to highlight a couple of modules in particular, we'll also be including a brand new full module on building a positive research culture. That's module 2. And this will align with some very important developments that are happening in this area currently, and David touched on this earlier too. So the increasing recognition of the impact that research cultures, positive and negative, can have on researchers' careers, as well as the role that researchers themselves can play in shaping those research cultures. And the last module, module 10, will be more of a flexible career planning tool based on a bespoke activity or series of activities that guide the researcher to put together their personal and professional narrative statements for their career development and an action plan. And this may well draw on the learning contained within the programme as a whole. So as such, it will take quite a different approach and format to the rest of the modules in the programme, and should be quite a nice, practical and personalisable tool. Personalisable is a word. Next slide, please, Matthew. So we're very pleased and fortunate to be working with two very experienced figures in the field of research and development as lead advisors for the programme. So Professor David Bogle, of course, who is with us today, and Dr. Shelda Dubowski, who was also lead advisor for the first edition of this course. And both are already bringing their significant expertise to programme development and will provide overarching guidance on the vision and the scope of the programme as it develops, as well as feedback on the draft content at various stages. And we'll also be working with a team of authors who will write the module content, and we're looking forward to being able to announce that team very soon. Next slide, please. So at Epigeum, we put quite a lot of work into the learning design of our programmes to ensure that the content is interactive and engaging, and that the learner is an active driver of their own learning, and that the module activities are designed to most effectively develop and test the learning points and support retention. So some of the key features of the programme to support this are listed there on the screen, but just to pull out a few. So scenarios will be including plenty of thought-provoking interactive scenarios so researchers can apply the concepts they've learned in the module in a realistic set of circumstances. We'll be including a number of video interviews with researchers at different levels and with different types of experience, and these will feature in every module. And we do intend to have different discipline options for these videos, and actually some of the activities where relevant. So the user could select the video option for the field that's closest to their own, and reflect on the experiences that those researchers are sharing. And then just to pull out the portfolio, so on top of the core content of the module, each module will also contain downloadable portfolio activities for further depths of learning on that particular module topic, and to allow the learner to build that portfolio of career development resources and personal evidence that they can keep. Exactly how that portfolio will be shaped is something that is going to be reviewed and decided upon as part of the collaborative development of the course, but I think it's a great tool to have on top of that core content, and something, yes, that researchers can keep and add to as they're progressing along their career pathway. And then my last slide, if we could move on to it, just summarises some of the overarching aims and the benefits of the programme. So it will enable institutions to promote a supportive culture of continuous professional development, where researchers are really enabled to realise their potential. It will help institutions to deliver scaled up and cost-effective training and development to researchers across all faculties and disciplines, and it can be accessed anytime, anywhere, and will support existing institutional researcher development initiatives. And finally, you'll have the opportunity to review and provide input into the developing materials in advance of receiving access to the published programme as part of our collaborative approach in joining the development group to ensure the modules meet your researchers' needs. And so now I'm really pleased to hand over to Victoria Stoner, who is our Senior Academic Partnerships Manager. And Vicky is going to tell you a bit more about this opportunity to join the development group and how to get involved.
Thank you, Emma, and good morning, everyone. Advancing your research career will be developed using Epigeum's unique collaborative model. This means that we'll be drawing on the expertise and experience of our advisors, authors, reviewers, and partner institutions, development group members, to ensure that the finished programme is of the highest quality. By joining the development group, you'll be able to directly contribute to the planning and development of the programme, ensuring that it addresses the needs of your researchers and meets your institutional requirements by agreeing a detailed content outline, participating in an online development group workshop, and reviewing materials as they're worked into modules. You will also receive a campus-wide unlimited subscription to the resource upon publication, giving you access to high-quality, interactive content at a speed and level of investment that would be rarely achievable for a single institution working alone. This one-off payment represents a considerable long-term saving when compared to the cost of an annual subscription to the programme. Next slide, please. I've just picked out a couple of testimonials from institutions that have collaborated with us recently. So Dr. Tina Ramlakhan from Brunel University has said it was a unique opportunity to work with peers worldwide and share ideas. And then similarly from Charlotte Williams from University of Sheffield has said we've had a lot of really constructive discussions and lots of opportunity to share our different opinions. So next slide, please. We have a dedicated implementation team that provides ongoing support to all our partner institutions. This support will often begin even before purchase. So in this case, in the development group process, it would start at the point of the online workshop, so thinking about the implementation of the programme, and will intensify in the lead up to the publication in order to ensure that you are able to immediately begin using the programme in a way that suits your institution. For example, should you become a development group member, there are two programme delivery options. You can either upload the content to your virtual learning environments, such as Blackboard, Moodle, or Canvas, and there's a few others as well, or you can use our dedicated online platform. Each option has different advantages and will help you to take a decision based on what works best for your particular context. If you do use our platform, we'll be able to help you to use our reporting options that will allow you to track usage and engagement with the programme. Speaking of engagement, we also provide a comprehensive asset pack containing a range of support materials. We'd be delighted to attend any promotional activities or key stakeholder meetings at your institution. Finally, we have a dedicated technical support team that will work with you and your IT team. As said previously, as a member of the Advancing Your Research Career Development Group, your institution will be able to inform all aspects of the programme via a collaborative workshop and rigorous review process, ensuring that it truly meets your researchers' needs before receiving an institution-wide unlimited subscription, so on perpetual access to the finished resource upon publication, including 5 years worth of updates and technical support, and also collaborating with an implementation partner from Epigeum. The workshop this year will be online, and there will be approximately 3 to 5 short sessions across 2 days, so from week commencing the 17th of May. Attendance of these sessions can be split across members of your team, so you can split it depending on expertise. Next slide, please. And finally, from me, if you have any queries or requests after the webinar, and I know that we've got a questions section in a minute, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. I'll be more than happy to meet with you virtually to discuss this in more detail. Thank you very much.
There we go. Thank you very much for that, Victoria. That was wonderful. So, if anyone has any questions, if they could put them in the question box, and I will read them out for everyone and who they're intended for. So the first question is to David. And is there, in your opinion, any difference in terms of how the course will be applicable to established versus fixed term researchers in their development?
Emma might be able to respond to this as well, but I don't believe so. I mean, the leadership principles apply across the board. It's how one builds a strategy to grow and develop in different ways. And I think that will be sort of a thread through it. And all of the elements are things that I would see people building their research career. And actually, I think most of these things, not all, but most of them will work just as well if one's seeing one career, you know, building that research career beyond academia as well as within academia. Maybe one or two, you know, exactly how you fund things is slightly different outside of academia than inside, but most of the other things will be rather similar. So it's about building a set of generic skills that are applied in different ways, in different in different contexts. So I don't see a difference. Emma, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree fully. That was spot on. Nothing more to add.
There we go. Excellent. Thank you very much, both. And another question, Emma, would you be able to speak a little bit to the different disciplines and approaches to those within the course, please?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, again, similar to the previous question, the course will be construed quite broadly to make sure that the activities are sort of applicable enough to a researcher, no matter what discipline they're working in. It will be an opportunity to reflect on their own individual context, their own pathways, their own circumstances, their own disciplines. So the majority of the activities will be broad enough to encourage that individual reflection. Having said that, we do recognise that it will be beneficial to have some activities or case studies or video interviews, for example, that are that do have those multiple options, like I mentioned earlier. So, for example, just to pull a module off the top of my head, the Funding Your Research module, the difference between disciplines and different funders you might apply for, depending on your discipline, is quite important, or can be. So I think that would definitely benefit from having more discipline-specific activities, and the researcher will be able to choose the option that is most relevant for their discipline. And that will be the case for all of the video interviews throughout all of the modules as well. So yes, there will be that split between broad, generic content and certain discipline activities where specific and relevant. I will also add that we are assembling an expert reviewer panel as well, and we're making sure that they have interdisciplinary expertise among the panel to make sure that we're really reflecting the you know, the full range of disciplines within the course content.
Excellent, thank you very much. We have a question here from Fiona McCurley, and I think this is for you, Emma. Have you carried out any research that shows researchers want to access content online? As our experience is, they like the idea of being able to access things anytime, but there may be a low uptake. And can it be used as part of a face-to-face training for a blended approach?
Yeah, okay, so I'll answer your first question first, Fiona. So we did include some reviewers in our research from that early to mid-career researcher group. And yes, there was definite interest in being able to access this to fit around their workload, basically. The collaborative workshop element that a lot of institutions offer is always seen as really useful, but occasionally being able to attend those workshops can be really hard for researchers, is what we've found in our research. And I think particularly for postdocs who might be under the thumb of a busy PI, being able to access these online modules in their own time around that was definitely found to be something of interest in our research. The second question, yes, we always recommend that the best way to get the most out of EPIGEUM courses is through that blended approach. And a lot of institutions that are using the first edition at the moment are very successfully working with this. So they're tying the individual course modules in with specific workshops focusing on that particular module content. And to support this for the second edition, we're going to be including an instructor manual full of a number of blended activities. And these are suggestions for workshops or discussion boards or other blended formats as a way for research and development staff at universities to be able to tie in the module content with potential workshop or other blended forms of activities that they're carrying out as well. I hope that answers your question.
Can I add a comment, Matthew?
Please do.
I haven't got research, but I want to add an anecdotal. My experience is, a couple of things have changed hugely. I used to be quite skeptical of some of the online courses, and a number of things have changed. One is the delivery mechanisms and the professionalism are much better than they used to be. The second is, of course, the pandemic has really changed the way people are thinking about online activities. And I've really seen a very significant shift well, and obviously people have been having to do it, and it remains to be seen how much is retained, but I think a lot will be retained. We've found that it's so much more convenient and flexible to be able to do these things in this way, and there's much more appetite for it than there was before. So I, as once a skeptic, have become more convinced.
That's very good to hear. We have another question here from Tina Ramkalawan. How relevant or translatable will the content be for researchers who may return to working and developing their research careers in the global south?
Can I perhaps I should comment on that. There are big challenges in the global south. The way things get done is a little bit different. But all of my experience through, we had a big global doctoral education conference last year in Germany with lots of people from the developing world. A conference together with the Wellcome Trust about early career researchers, which again was North and South. And indeed within my own institution, and also chairing these things for the Royal Academy of Engineering on Sub-Saharan Africa. And all the message is always, we don't, the challenge is different, but the principles are the same. So I really think these principles will work. It's just how you use them in practice, always, like anything else, needs to be tuned to a local context. And I hope some of that will be, those nuances will be developed in some of the modules as well.
There you go. Emma, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, it's I totally agree. It's those principles that are going to be sort of embedded throughout the modules, and I think having case studies and interviewing researchers as part of the modules is going to be a really useful way of getting some of those nuances into the course content.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So just anyone has any questions, now is the time to ask. Let's give it another couple of seconds to see if anyone has any last minute questions. No? Well, it just remains for me to thank everyone for attending today. I hope you found it interesting and useful. Please do get in touch if you have any more queries, and download the flyer from your dashboard. Thank you very much, Professor Bogle, to Emma and Victoria for all of their work today. And we hope to speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.